Buddhist, Joy of Preparation, UGC Net English, and Paper One online test portal. Victorian era. Victorian period was during the reign of Queen Victoria, 1837-1901. Authors during the Victorian era began to reflect on realities of the day, the dangers of factory work, the plight of the lower class, the treatment of women and children, child labor. It was a period of great social and political reform, especially regarding the role of women. Novel. Although poetry and plays were important in Victorian era, the period is known as the Great Age of the novel. The Victorian novel can be divided in three groups. 1. Early Victorian novel, Charles Dickens, dealt with social themes. 2. Mid-Victorian novel, Bronte Sisters, dealt with psychological themes. 3. Late Victorian novel, Wild, was nearer to European naturalism. Charles Dickens. He is the most famous Victorian novelist. His most important works include The Pickwick Papers, Oliver Twist, Nicholas Nickleby, A Christmas Carol, Dombey and Son, David Copperfield, Bleak House, Little Dorrit, A Tale of Two Cities, and Great Expectations. William Thackeray. He was Dickens' great rival in the first half of Queen Victoria's reign. He is best known for his novel Vanity Fair, subtitled A Novel Without a Hero. His play The Wolves and the Lamb was a famous one. Charlotte Bronte dedicated the second edition of Jane Eyre to Thackeray. Victorian women writers used pseudonyms, also some were in masculine. Emily, Elizabet, Charlotte, Currer Bell, Mary Ann Evans, George Eliot, Elizabeth Gaskell, Cotton Mather Mills, Christina Rossetti, Ellen Alleyne, Alice Mona Caird, G. Noel Hatton, Elizabeth Hans, Daphne. Bronte Sisters. They produced notable works in the period, although these were not immediately appreciated by Victorian critics. Wuthering Heights, 1847, Emily's only work, is an example of Gothic romanticism. Jane Eyre by Charlotte is another major novel that has Gothic themes. Anne's second novel, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, written in realistic, rather than romantic style, and to be the first sustained feminist novel. George Eliot. She is known for their realism, psychological insight, sense of place and detailed depiction of the countryside. Her famous works, The Mill on the Floss, Silas Marner and Middlemarch. Middlemarch was described by the novelist Virginia Woolf as one of the few English novels written for grown-up people. Eliza Lynn Linton. She was the first female, salaried journalist, Morning Chronicle, in Britain. She is the author of over 20 novels. Many of her essays took a strong anti-feminist slant. Her most successful works, The True History of Joshua Davidson, Patricia Kemble, and the autobiography of Christopher Kirkland. Elizabeth Cleghorn Gaskell. Her novels offer a detailed portrait of the lives of many strata of Victorian society, including the very poor. Gaskell's best-known novels are Cranford, North and South, and Wives and Daughters. Thomas Hardy. He was an important novelist of Victorian era. His most notable works include Under the Greenwood Tree, Far from the Madding Crowd, The Mayor of Casterbridge, Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and Jude the Obscure. Anthony Trollope. He was an English novelist and civil servant of the Victorian era. He wrote novels on political, social, and gender issues, and other topical matters. His best-known work is Chronicles of Barsetshire. Poems. Robert Browning and Alfred Tennyson were Victorian era's most famous poets. Elizabeth Barrett Browning and Robert Browning conducted their love affair through verse, and produced many tender and passionate poems. The Victorians loved the heroic stories of knights. The best example is Alfred Tennyson's Idylls of the King. Elizabeth Hans. She worked as a domestic servant for a family. Her poems treat a wide variety of subjects, and are frequently satirical. The Death of Amnon tells the violent and somber biblical story of how King David's son Amnon raped his sister Tamar, and was killed by their half-brother Absalom. Both Matthew Arnold and Gerard Manley Hopkins wrote poems which sit somewhere in between the exaltation of nature of the Romantic poetry and the Georgian poetry of the early 20th century. Arnold's works anticipate some of the themes of these later poets, while Hopkins drew inspiration from verse forms of Old English poetry. Plays. Notable playwrights are W. S. Gilbert, George Bernard Shaw, and Oscar Wilde. W. S. Gilbert. His collaboration with composer Arthur Sullivan, which produced 14 comic operas. His famous plays include HMS Pinafore, The Pirates of Penzance and the Mikado. Oscar Wilde. He is best remembered for his epigrams and plays. He is best known for the picture of Dorian Gray novel, and plays a woman of no importance, an ideal husband, and the importance of being earnest. George Bernard Shaw. He wrote more than 60 plays. His major works including Man and Superman, 1902, Pygmalion, 1912, and St. Joan, 1923. He promoted eugenics and alphabet reform and opposed vaccination. Shaw's first 3 full-length plays dealt with social issues. He later grouped them as plays unpleasant. Shaw's trilogy plays Pleasant, Arms and the Man, 1894, Candida, 1894, You Never Can Tell, 1896. In 1925, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Thank you. Follow us.